But I'd like to begin by telling you about some of the things that are coming up this fall, very, very briefly, and then move into our discussion. And I'll throw out some things that I felt about the book, and then I'm going to invite you to whatever you would like to discuss to lead us in that direction. But there are some very exciting things that are happening. Starting this coming Sunday at both the 9:15 and the 10:30 service, we are going to be having sign language interpreters for some deaf persons who are beginning to come to church. And I'm very excited about that. In fact, we have a consultant who is herself deaf, and she's going to be working with us to encourage and to invite persons from the deaf community. And they're going to be at both those services and see where they should be positioned and things. But I'm very excited about it. We've worked very, very hard to make that happen. We are already closed captioning our services except for the 8 o'clock service, and we're also having the hearing assisting devices. But this is a new step for us. We're also developing a program in connection with the state of Maryland for families who have children who have autism. And that may happen on Sunday mornings. It may happen on a different set time. But we are working on that with one of our members here, Scott Fowler, and persons from the state of Maryland as well, to be of service to an underserved congregation. We have been strengthening our partnership with Shao Elementary, and I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, we're collecting school supplies for Shao. We're going to need desserts again because we have 2 days that we've taken this fall for teachers to be in service, and we're going to need a little bit of money to buy some pizza, because we're going to feed them one night for student-teacher conferences, and so they won't go home before that. We, as mentioned, Tom and I were talking earlier, we continue to support St. Paul's by the Sea Episcopal Church in their ministry to the homeless. We took today several casseroles over, plus personal hygiene items, and so we're excited about helping persons who are just struggling. And it costs, as we all know, a lot to have both a place to live and to have all the supplies and things that life requires, and so we want to be of help there. We are also going to have a rally day. How many of you ever had rally day with Sunday school? So our rally day is going to start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to be meeting out by the fire pit. Paul, you can bring your guitar if you have an acoustic guitar. Or a long extension cord, and we're going to sing songs and have hot dogs the United Methodist men are going to supply, and we're going to just have a good time for about an hour or a little over, and then of course the next day is school. But you'll see that in the bulletin. And finally, all the stuff that we do in the fall starts back in September, and one of the things that we're going to be doing is the Tuesday afternoon Bible study, which I teach, will be about Genesis. Wednesday night men's study will be about something else, and the Sunday school classes we're still talking that through. But there's a lot of exciting things coming up, and please share these ideas and talk about them with others. So let's talk about the book. How many of you enjoyed the book? Does anybody not enjoy the book? One of the things that I thought about this book that really struck a chord with me is its emphasis and the many ways in which the idea of kindness comes shining through. So if you were to describe Theo of Golden in one word, what would it be? Just shout right out or raise your hand, however you want to respond.
Oh, you took my word.
Okay, so compassionate. What other words?
Generous,
that's another great word. What else? Because we're going to talk with each other. I'm not going to sit here and talk all night.
He was loving.
He was loving, okay. So can you give me one illustration where he was loving that struck you?
Overall, he was always sensitive to each of the individuals that he came into contact with. And he was more willing and more anxious to listen to them, to hear what in their life made them who they are today. And each one of them had some experience in their life that made them a little hesitant to get together with him.
Yeah.
But he was persistent because he wanted to share his love with them.
You know, Don, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things that always struck me, the different vignettes in the story, and actually, and I don't know if it's Levi or Levi, and his name is actually pronounced the last name, he says that the book is best to be understood as a series of vignettes rather than one complete story,
Yes.
is how well he listened and how that listening developed trust between he and the other person. And that's something that's always struck me. And that's one of the things I had written down to mention, to talk about how we all can listen better to one another, to people we meet. Everybody wants to be listened to because, you know, if we listen to one another or to someone, we're affirming their value. We're investing our time in them, and we're saying to them, you are important. You matter. And I just think that that's a wonderful gift that comes shining through this whole book. So any other one-word statements about the book that you would say describe it? Yes, ma'am, Blanche.
One thing that I'm thinking about, it's been a while since I read the book.
Okay.
But, I went back and looked at it a little bit before I came, and I was reminded of the fact that when Theo, in his earlier life, he became famous and he was also rich, and he was not the same person that he appeared to be at the end of the book.
Yeah.
And so it is possible to change if you were not always the person that.
And isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
It really is. He shows growth and progression throughout the whole book. And I think that's a wonderful insight, Ms. Blanche. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. So for me, the word that I think of in this book is kindness. And if you'll permit me for just a moment or two, I live in a world, and I know you do too, but my experience of the world is a lot of brokenness, a lot of hurt. I do lots and lots of funerals. We talk to people, both Karen and myself, when they're going through hard times, difficulties, struggles. And the world is not always a kind place, is it? And I like the fact that in this book, kindness, gentleness is perceived as a strength, not a weakness. Because we can sometimes perceive people who are kind and gentle and maybe quiet and emphasize others as as being kind of weak. But kindness is a strong quality. Now, can you think of any place that in the Bible that affirms that reality that kindness is a strength? You all are Bible scholars, so help me out, please.
The Good Samaritan.
Good Samaritan is one. That's absolutely. I've got it in my notes here, Miss Blanche. Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Can you think of any other place?
Prodigal son.
Okay, how the prodigal son?
The father
Okay.
who was so loving and kind to the son who came home, and it was just amazing after what that son had done that the father opened his arms.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
He had already forgiven him before he
Yes.
ever got there.
Yeah.
How about the fruit of the Spirit? You ever think about the fruit of the Spirit? Those are all qualities that relate to kindness, call us to have maybe a different way of being together with people. Kindness is my word. And, that's something that we can all choose to do, right? We can choose to be kind to one another and everyone we meet. We're going to have disagreements and differences of opinion, but we can choose to be kind. And so I would hope that based on the reading of this book, that when you go out, you would choose everyone you meet to begin with kindness. And I think that's one of the great lessons of this book. I also wrote down another little note under that. Do you remember what was on the plaque that was placed on the bench to remember that Tony put on the bench? And it's a wonderful epitaph about how our lives could be lived. Anybody remember?
I don't remember, because I too read the book some time ago.
Okay. Well, let me share it with you real quick.
I know it was,
Yeah.
I know I loved it. when I
Good.
read it.
He commented on the plaque. Heaven and earth met in this old Portuguese man. Isn't that neat? I think that's a wonderful thing that any one of us could say, that people saw God's love shining through us. The second thing I think this book teaches us is not to judge others by their appearance. Do you remember Kendrick? Who was Kendrick? Tell me a little bit about Kendrick.
It was the janitor.
Oh,
The janitor. And anybody else? I'll jump in. Tell me a little bit about him.
I was gonna mention, kindness begets, is it a word? Kindness.
Yes, it does.
Because he, in speaking to Kendrick and understanding what happened and why Kendrick is the way he is, his conversations with Kendrick helped his daughter and led to a different perspective between Kendrick and I forget the name of the state's attorney. Because, and he had no qualms about meeting the state's attorney because of the case involving the daughter's
Right.
accident, and saying to him, "You don't remember me, do you? Do you know what you did to me?" And the state's attorney had no idea that what he did had impacted this man in a negative way.
Yeah.
And then how the whole thing turns out, with the story. And it was intertwined. Everybody was intertwined. How many of the characters did you see that were intertwined? And it was amazing. I go wherever I go, I tell people you have to read this book. And I read it because everybody at church was saying you have to read this book. So that's what I remember about him.
Okay. Well, anything else you remember, Tom?
And just to follow up on that, all the people were very different.
Yeah, they were, weren't they?
So whether socioeconomically they were different, you could tell maybe you could tell some of them from a political
Yeah.
perspective were
Right.
different. Everyone was different,
Mm-hmm.
and he was able to speak to everyone, not just one group of people.
I think a little extension of that, to me, I just read the book in the last 2 weeks, so it's somewhat fresh. About 2/3 of the way, maybe even 3/4 of the way all these people related to each other was more Theo-like. So my word, kindness, makes sense, beautiful word. When you ask, the first thing that crossed my mind is contagious.
Okay.
That's
fine.
good.
Meaning,
It's
the
fine.
example, Theo allowed other people to treat each other. Because the last quarter of the book
Yeah.
is more underlying how people treated each other. The Theo in them.
Paul, I felt like when I read it, they formed a real community. They were very different, but they formed a real community. But if you allow me for just a moment to go back to that sense of not, for want of a better term, judging a book by its cover. What special talent did Kendrick have? Do you remember that?
It's what-
He could sing.
He could
Yeah,
sing. He was a
yes,
tremendous
yes,
singer.
yes.
And, if you looked at him, you would never have thought this man had such talent and ability and was so gifted as what he was. So, yeah, I think it's important that when we look at a person, it may be a horrible, terrible, very bad day, I think I'll move to Australia type day, or it could be a great day or whatever. But we have to be careful that we don't categorize and judge other persons simply on first expressions or appearances, because everybody in the book brings something special and unique and different to the table, and
Everyone
everybody
had a
matters. Sorry?
Everyone had
Yeah,
a gift.
everybody had
talent.
yes, yeah, they did. They really did, and things. So the third thing that I would bring out and say to you is a lot different than that. There is a lot of sadness in the book, isn't it? And we as people, the natural tendency we have is to push sadness away. And why is that, do you think? I mean, we don't want to have anything to do with that. And, but yet, sadness is a part of everybody's life. And what did, everybody's portrait exhibited some measure of sadness. So can sadness be used not simply as something we want to avoid, but maybe it's something that helps shapes us into the people that God calls us to be or that we want to become. Is that a possibility, you think?
Let me answer your question
Go ahead.
about why do we have a tendency to avoid
Sure.
addressing sadness.
Go right ahead.
I don't think we know how to react to sadness of others.
Okay.
And with Theo talking to people, recognizing the sadness, and he would relate to them by telling them a similar incident in his own life that affected him and was sadness as well. So I think, and that's even my problem. Tom will say, my girlfriend was dying of cancer and she was more than 3 hours away, and he says, why don't you go up? Is it too far? I said, I can't face it. I can't face my friend's sadness. So I sent cards every week.
Sometimes we don't have the words to say,
That's right.
and sometimes we're afraid to say the wrong words. So, yes, sir, Tom.
What I'm about to say doesn't necessarily relate to the book, but in terms of kindness, the young lifeguard out in California who saved that young man from drowning. I mean, when I think of kindness, I mean, I know that's what he was doing for a living.
Right.
But that was, that was awesome. And the reaction of the American people to that one event was incredible. Another thing also is, this is necessarily sadness, but, when we see people who are sad or upset, sometimes we get involved, sometimes we don't. But the cleaners at Ocean Pines, where I go to take my clothes, the husband there is very, very.
Yeah, I know where you go. I go to the same place.
His wife is.
Butterfly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so, I don't know, about 2 or 3 months ago, I'm usually at a loss for words, as you probably know, but anyway, and I said to his wife sitting right there, I said, you know what, you're always so up and down, but your husband always seems so sad. And I said to him, I really like you, okay, so, why don't you try smiling once in a while, okay? All right, so, I didn't say it like that, because that's like ordering him to do it, but, I said it in a nice way. And so, over time, now when I come in, he smiles.
Yeah.
And because sometimes when you see people who are sad, it makes you feel bad, because it's like, I don't like seeing people who are sad.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about judging people, don't judge a book by its
Right.
cover,
Right?
is that, 2 things I have to say that, when I got out, I think I've said this before, when I got out of college, I taught elementary school in West Baltimore for 7 years, and the first day I went in the classroom, I'll put it as bluntly as I can, nobody looked like me, okay?
Right.
In fact, the 7 years I taught in that school, nobody looked like me, okay? And as much as I may be a bleeding heart liberal, we all have our own, views of things.
Right.
And I can tell you one thing, I learned a lot
Sure.
in that
Sure.
process. And I also learn it today when I go into the prisons and I visit my clients and they're in there for a crime. I won't use the profanity if I use, but I say, but what the heck are you doing here? I mean, because we all think these guys in prison are dumb, illiterate and all that. They aren't, folks. Most of them are pretty darn smart,
Yeah.
but they're there for some other reason. And so it's just that judging each person as themselves and realizing that you can make a difference in another person's life just by showing them kindness.
Tom, I want to follow up with that, two remarks. So I have a dear friend who was a prison chaplain over in Delaware at Sussex Correctional Institute. And he said to me one day, he said, Dale, he says, do you know what denomination is the most populous in this prison? And I thought, no, I really don't know. He says, United Methodist. Because there's so many of us around and we go to prison at a higher percentage than many other groups. I mean, Paul, you'll be thankful to know it was not Presbyterians and things like that.
I
So,
wish it had been, then my workload would have been significantly lower.
and if it had been, they would have been predestined to be there.
There you go.
Yeah. But the second thing he said is these are all persons here, some of whom, obviously had evil intent. I mean, we need to be honest about that. But they're all people who made a mistake. And good people make mistakes. And so, yeah, we have to be careful about that. But I want to go back to the sadness piece. Anybody else want to comment on the sadnesses that are in the book? Life brings with it many sadnesses. Tom?
I just think the portraits, he saw different things in
Yeah.
each portrait.
Absolutely.
But sadness was always in there
Yeah.
somewhere. And I think the message there is sadness shows that there's a need for help.
Okay, it does.
And that help can only be gotten by other people in some
Yeah.
cases.
But notice when he approached people on their portrait, he started out with the positive and the kindness and the whatever. But I
He
do
did.
see a little sadness in
Yeah.
there. Reminded me of the eunuch Philip in the New
Yeah.
Testament,
Hmm.
and the approach of one of the disciples simply saying, "Hey, blah, 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 what are you doing? You don't know? Well, come up and tell me, because now I'm curious." And so the apostle went up and spoke to him, starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
So it's an entree.
Yeah.
Well, he spoke of it as a good sadness.
Yeah.
And the loss of his own daughter had been a transforming experience in his life.
Right.
And just one example, it helped him connect with Ellen,
Yes,
the
it
homeless
did.
woman. And he could look past things that no one else could. And in the end,
Mhm.
it was the deep hurt of losing her daughter. And he could see that you can't be that sad unless you have loved someone tremendously. So sadness is like the flip side of deep love.
It is.
And he was able to call out the sadness, but then not try to make it go away. He tried to give them room to process it and see the role that it had played in their lives, just like Kendrick. Much of the sadness that's in life was his daughter.
Yeah.
And his limited capacity to help her.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. So let's go back to the idea of how do we respond to people who are in the midst of sadness? Because two things. We've all been there, and we will probably all go there again. The best thing I can say to you and my two colleagues in ministry can agree or disagree, is just to show up.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say anything. You can't solve it. You can't fix it. You can't necessarily make it better, but you can show up and just not say a thing. Job's counselors made a mess of stuff, and Job's wife wasn't any better. But, when people sat with Job that said nothing, and we've experienced that, we don't have the words to explain why this happens or why that happens. Even as clergy, we don't have those words. But we can show up and say, you are not alone in this journey of sadness. And I'm sorry about your friend who passed and things, but yeah, I think just showing up. People are not looking for explanations or answers. They're looking for another human being to walk that journey
Yeah, you're right.
with them.
And that's what he could do.
Yeah, he could.
Saw people. He saw
Yeah.
them in the way that no one else had seen them.
That's right.
And by being fully seen, it's like even if you're suffering, the fact that someone else truly sees what you're experiencing
absolutely.
was a way of sharing it and lifting some of the
It
burden.
makes it a
That's
little
how
bit
God
less.
works.
Yeah.
I mean, we show up for people as the hands and feet
Mhm.
of God, and it is in that being with that they feel that touch of God's own.
Absolutely. I think you should lead this conversation because you're doing a great job. But no, and one of the unique things about Jesus, there's lots of them, but one of the really special things is that Jesus sees us, sees the hurt, the pain, and doesn't turn away from it. He embraces it and goes through it with you. And so I think that's an important part to mention, the sadness. Do you think anybody in this book was a saint?
No,
They were what?
they were human.
Okay.
They
So
were-
first of all, Donna, how would you define a saint?
Oh my gosh, people throw that around.
Other than
Back in
Tom.
the 60s, everything was love. Tom is not a saint.
Okay.
neither am I, that's why we're good together. What is a saint?
So in,
So it could be, like, when I say Judy's a saint, she says the right thing, she makes a comment that helps me to recognize and deal with an issue that I have.
okay.
She helps me to learn to love myself if I'm not loving myself. Because each of these characters seem to be in a situation where they almost threw up their hands and they were saying, well, what can I do about it? Like,
Yeah.
what can I do?
yeah,
The young lady who was being abused physically by her boyfriend, recognizing, come to learn to love yourself, and you don't need that evil in your life, and you move on. That's a word, when you say she's a saint, we kind of throw it around.
so anybody
And a
else?
good deed doer.
Okay.
Aren't we supposed to be saints, as opposed to the Catholic religion, where you have to, have certain levels of excellence in.
You have to do 3 miracles and some other things too, yeah.
I thought I've always heard that in the Methodists, we're all saints.
Yes.
Now, I
Okay.
don't exactly know how that applies, but I know I've heard.
All right,
that.
so let me help you out with that thing, because I is a Methodist, and I might know a few things about that. So I'm probably the only Methodist preacher in Ocean Pines that has a St. Francis statue in his front yard. And I really wish to some degree that we had a list of saints. I don't think that I would be on it. Karen probably would, but not me.
Do you see St. Francis with the birds?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's in my front yard.
We had a Methodist minister in my old Methodist Episcopal church, and he actually had the statue in the church.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that statue.
Yeah. And for me, it's I love St. Francis,
Right.
but I love a lot of the other saints and the things that are part of that. A saint, Judy, in the New Testament is anyone who is a follower of Christ. So Paul will write a letter to the saints who are at Galatia, or the saints who are in Rome, or the saints who are in whatever town or location the letter is sent to. So the truth is, we are surrounded in this room by saints. And that's how we are to understand ourselves. But we are also surrounded in this room by real people. Sometimes we do good, and sometimes we do bad. And I think that's an important lesson of this book. Life brings with it challenges, lots of joys, lots of fun things, lots of great gifts. But it also brings with it some challenges, some very hard times. And we are called to, whether our lives are good at that point or bad, to represent the love and kindness, the contagiousness, and all the other words we talked about at the start of Christ to the people we meet and encounter. And if we do that, we don't change the entire world, do we? But we do change that one person, perhaps, and we are changed ourselves. So what I'd like to do at this point in time is, we've got a few more moments, is just simply to throw it open and let you guys bring up whatever you would like to talk about, whatever questions or thoughts that you might want to share.
So one of the things I found interesting is there's a lot of lead characters.
Mhm.
And the book.
Yeah.
There's a lot of characters. But
Mhm.
did you notice that the majority of the lead characters were male? And the one female lead character was a homeless woman. But she was a lead character in that. And I found it was interesting the way he developed that, utilizing that.
So what do you take from that observation?
I don't know. I
Okay.
just found it was interesting, and because she was the only woman, and because she was homeless, and because she had mental health issues that she was dealing with, she was a very likely unlikable character. And yet she became a very likable character. And she was really one of the most important characters, I thought, in the book.
Okay. How would you all
How does anybody
respond?
else feel about that?
How would you all respond to Donna?
I would say that Alan Levi is going to, his next book, she is the protagonist
Yeah.
in the next book.
Yeah,
So
it's
it might
the-
answer,
There's a second book?
He's
his
right.
publisher
Yeah,
wants him to do this,
yeah.
and what he said was, I could do Theo of Golden anonymously. I had no pressure from the world to create a commercially successful book. I don't like that the publisher wants me to do Ellen, but he's gonna do it. Kind of.
Yeah, so you've been
I
watching.
thought it was interesting, I counted them. You do realize the primary characters in the book almost come to 12.
Yeah,
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
He
You
always
leave it to, well, he was
notices it.
looking for that, wasn't he?
well, he's, yeah,
Interesting.
he's looking for the disciples
He
again.
always finds the
Yeah.
disciples
Well,
in every-
I got one more.
Okay.
Okay,
93 portraits on the wall.
yeah,
Guess what? 6 more portraits were made during the book itself,
and,
So what
which is
what
a
was
total of
happening
99.
yeah. And what was the place where the portraits were hung called?
in the coffee shop? What
The,
was
the,
it called?
the,
The chalice, the chalice, yeah.
Chalice.
There's a lot of church allusion
Yes.
in the
It's a-
book.
It's an allegory in
Yeah.
lots of different ways.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
My
Well, he's a
grandfather-
Christ type, by the way.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Austin, speak up, buddy.
My grandfather said Theo meant God,
Okay,
and Shep is the gentleman in the coffee shop, so shepherd. My grandfather
Okay.
said to mention that he couldn't be here. But
okay. So did everybody hear Austin?
No, I heard him say something.
Use your outdoor voice, buddy.
My grandfather's in the history, he couldn't be here, but he said he was telling me Theo means God, and
Yes, yes, it does.
and then he said
Bring
that
it
the gentleman who ran the coffee shop was named Shep,
Like a
so you could
shepherd?
think of it as shepherd.
Wow,
Yeah, but they're all,
that's good. How about the villains? Who are the villains in the story, and did you manage to come to like them, or at least one of them? The first villain I can think of is, I thought he was maybe an Asian man who drove the vehicle. He was illegally in the country.
yes.
He had been deported, he came back because, was it a grandchild that was
Mhm.
deathly ill, hospitalized, and he was rushing to get to the hospital, and he's involved in an accident that results in the horrific injury to, was it Kendrick?
Killed the mother.
Killed the mother.
And then
Hurt the child.
The child or granddaughter, and yet you didn't know the background story of the driver of the car, so immediately he's a villain, and then you learn the background story, and in learning the background story now, it changes, the father, and it just, it's like a rippling effect, is that what I wanna say? It's
Okay.
one touches one, and, everyone, all the growth of compassion, I thought that was interesting.
Mercy.
Yeah, what about the man who tore up the portrait of
Oh
his
my goodness.
girlfriend?
Wasn't that the abuser of the
Yeah.
young lady?
Yeah.
That was a villain. You were asking about villains.
Yeah, I didn't have any compassion for him. I'm sorry,
So are there things that for Donna are beyond the pale of compassion?
I think so, and that one was.
Okay, all right.
I think a lot of what people do in life, whether it's positive or negative, or feeling good about themselves, or being sad, or whatever, is a reflection of self-confidence.
Okay.
And wherever that comes from, whether it comes from supportive parents or non-supportive parents, or whatever the source of, but self-confident people act in a different way than people who aren't self-confident. And they can have the same IQ, they can have the same amount of money, but they act in a different way. And that's why I think it's important, particularly at the early school level, to build the confidence of the children, because it will affect them down the road eventually.
So Tom, let me ask you a follow-up question to that then. Are you saying to me and to all of us here that so much of the villainous or human meanness, or whatever term you want to use, arises out of fear?
Is what, was it?
Arises out of
Rises
fear?
out of fear.
Some of it does, yeah,
And maybe dislike, even dislike of self.
yeah.
Well,
Certainly
because,
rises out of inadequacy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
it does.
what's that old saying that if you love your child and teach your child to love, they love, but if you abuse a child and you downplay their success and you yell at them all the time, that's what they become. And then then there's this idea, well, perhaps I deserve that.
Hmm?
I'm a bad person. I'm the reason.
If I were better, this wouldn't happen to me.
That's right.
What we often say in my counseling background is hurt people hurt people.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And, yes.
Yeah. And it's true, I think. Okay. What else would you all like to talk about or anything?
If the
What
book-
struck you?
I would like to know if there really is a town called Golden and.
There is not.
There is.
There is?
What is it, Columbia? Well, it's
Columbus.
Columbia.
Yeah, it's not, it goes by, it's a
It's
different
like-
name.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
so
so
much-
Say if you
Georgia.
look up, if you go on YouTube, and look up, I think it's Columbia, South Carolina,
Yeah.
and put in, Theo of Golden.
Yeah.
They will show you all the places in
And-
that little town.
And can anything good come out of South Carolina? I'm sorry.
Well, I live in Columbia, but I thought it
Georgia.
came from Georgia.
Georgia.
I thought it
Georgia,
was Georgia,
yeah.
Columbus, Coast Georgia. Columbus, right.
Yeah,
It's
Columbus,
Georgia.
yeah.
Lindsey
Right.
Graham did.
I'm sorry?
Lindsey Graham did.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because everything that you envision in the book,
Yeah.
you're actually seeing.
Yeah.
I'd love for that to be a movie.
Oh, it will be.
I'm sure.
You know, how do you,
You see, you're supposed to say y'all, and how y'all doing?
so how would you make this book into a movie? Because it's so many characters, so many experiences and things. What would be your theme that brings everything together, perhaps, is a way of saying it?
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. It's wonderful. He could be God, he could the voice, yeah.
I mean, and Tom Hanks is getting up there and he might be, yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be a major movie.
It's gonna
very
be a
soon.
lot
Yeah,
good.
in the next year or two. And I bet a bunch of the top actors,
Absolutely.
actresses will
Will
wanna
want
play
to
a
be it.
vignette.
I think so too, I
I
agree.
think this is gonna be, does anybody ever remember the Oscar Wilde play Our Town?
Yes,
Oh,
very much so.
yeah.
Where they have vignettes of different people, and then there's some connections between them.
You
There's
know-
one that's lesser known called Spoon River Anthology.
Okay.
And that's even more that way, and eventually by the end of these plays, the woman in this vignette has a distant cousin who was in this vignette, and they're discovering things, and this is what it reminded me of, this.
My son was in lots of plays in high school. There were some that were really, really good, and some that I just didn't like, which is like The Crucible. I never liked The Crucible. Never liked those plays where the minister was the bad guy. So,
Oh, I loved them.
yeah. And then there were some that just lasted way too long, like Pygmalion. I thought the play would never. I think I should still be sitting there in the theater watching him do his thing. But Our Town was one of the great ones. And there's a speech in there, can't remember it word for word, about now we're all together and about how the community and has influenced them. It's a great, great play. I thought Wilder did a tremendous thing in that. What else would you like to talk about?
I love the relationship between Tony
Oh, yeah.
and Theo.
Oh,
Because-
yeah.
What did you like about it, Tom?
Well, when I went into the fire department back in 1981,
Okay.
a lot of the folks that were there that trained me were salty Vietnam vets.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't the nicest people.
Okay.
And
You know, this is being broadcast. They might be listening.
Tony comes across, Tony has that edge, that, callous edge, which I really like when that gets broken down.
Mm-hmm.
And with Theo, he broke it down, and they became best friends.
Well, when you first meet Tony, he portrays a totally different person
Oh,
than he
absolutely,
becomes.
absolutely.
And how many of you really think he plan to ever close that bookstore and sell
Oh,
it?
never.
No, he never intended to do that.
He had money, there was no reason to close the bookstore. It was just his way of staying in the community is how I felt.
And we all have these people in our lives that we get, when we first meet them, we think, oh, I don't like that person. But then they kind of grow on us, and maybe we grow on them, and in the end, we have a pretty strong relationship. Because we can find something of value in each other, or maybe shared common shared experiences as well, yeah.
Tom and I did that. we chose not to like a person because of her relationship with a particular man that we thought was just not a nice person. And when they broke up, the first thing we did was run over and hug her and say, first of all, you look so good, and secondly, we want to apologize for not really treating you as well as we should, and you were nothing like we thought you were, because he was stronger than her, and so she became, in our mind, that same person. And she'll tell that story. Well, Tom and Donna ran over and apologized to me for a couple of years of not being nice. Not that we weren't nice, but we didn't stretch out. And
I can't imagine you not being nice, Donna. Just cannot even imagine that about you having strong opinions. Yeah. So what else would you like to talk about? What else?
There's something about empathy here.
Okay. Yes, there is. You're
You
right.
know, you've got to, sometimes when somebody's sad, you've just got to jump right in and have empathy for them. I mean, the empathy runs all through all of this.
And where do you get that? Where do you get that sense of empathy that you just described?
I don't know, is it something you grew up with? I don't know.
I think that's part of it. Where else could you get the empathy, though?
I think you have to learn it. It's
I
a
think you do.
discipline. Empathy. Sympathy is what is expected.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Or, well, he's in a better place now. Those are sympathetic things. To say, I feel horrible too, we lost Walter. You know, that's empathy. That's a whole different approach. And I think Austin said earlier his name is Theo. That means God in the ancient word text. The name in the book is Theophilus or Theophilus. Philus means what? Love. It's
It's the brotherly love.
brotherly love. It's not the sexual love, or the love of doing something. It's, I'm brothers and sisters with all of you here in this room. So this is God of love.
So if empathy is something we learn, how do we learn it and how do we teach it to others?
It may be because we've experienced a similar or same situation in our own lives, and we
Okay.
can really understand it. Oh, I know what you're going through. You don't know what I'm going through. I would love to understand what you're going through. Tell me what you're feeling. That's different.
Yeah,
Oh, I had
that was intriguing to me, that for 2/3 to 3/4 of the book, no one knew anything about Theo.
Yeah, amazing.
I
But-
thought that was an interesting device for the writer to do it that way. So I was going, well, who is this guy? I mean, it's obviously, he's a Christ-like figure, and what's going on here, and why is he, there's shady, I was waiting for the shady to come out, you know, that he really was a criminal or some other kind of thing, and then I'm curious, if we're getting close to finishing, I'm curious why he ended this way, the revelation, and I assume I'm not spoiling, the fact that Asher was his son. I'm curious why it took that turn.
Are you
I
curious?
loved it, but
Why did the author write the
Yeah,
book that way?
He didn't need to.
No, but didn't you at some point begin to think that perhaps there was a relationship between the portrait artist and Theo?
I really didn't, so, and I usually
Did you too?
pick up on that.
Yeah, I felt that at some point,
Yeah.
that there was a reason for everything he was doing in those portraits, and it was a great story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and he helped Asher see that he really was a talented artist, because this was a very successful artist seeing that.
You're right.
And he couldn't know that unless you told the whole story. So it was a gift he was given, his son, in some ways. And I think the theme, there are many,
Right.
but around generosity and contrasted
Yep.
with greed, because Donna, you were asking about villains. I think Pearson, the young woman, one of the first women he met, Mignette, I think, her father, who was Asher's brother. And remember how greedy he was? And the Thanksgiving dinner, he never could get beyond this just greed, and how he couldn't accept his daughter not you know, he wanted her to be a successful lawyer, and that's not what she wanted to do, and on and on and on. So you're seeing someone who's deeply generous, the transformative effect that has on the community, versus where the greed gets you. And even the phenomenal financial success that Theo had didn't do for him what this experience of giving of himself and giving of his resources.
And a lot of those,
did.
that giving was anonymous.
Exactly.
People didn't know who
Right,
did
so
this.
it was that kind of unconditional, and he didn't have an agenda, and no one knew what to do with that. You know how suspicious everybody
Oh,
was?
yes.
Yeah.
It's like, you're wanting something, that difficulty at receiving generosity, and I think that's another way of explaining about how he's the Christ type, because that's what love, Christ's love is given, forgiveness is given without any condition. Well, I mean, it's a generous, overflowing love, and it's very hard for us to accept that because we want to earn our
We do.
way.
That's a good point.
And so there's just so many ways in which he wove that theme.
So I want to come back to empathy because I think that's an important part. So Harry, hang on there. You hold on to empathy for a moment, okay? But I want to make a comment about this. You know, it's really easy for us to be in the place of being the giver. That's a position of power. You know, we want to be able to give to, and that makes us feel good about ourselves. It is hard to be in a position of being a receiver. And you know, people will ask me on occasion as a pastor, you know, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this hard or difficult time? And I'll say, I don't know why, but maybe the question is, what can I learn from this now? Where can I grow with this now? So, you know, just be aware of that inner workings that, you know, we like to be in a position of power. We like to be in that position of doing something for someone else. But it is, you know, what does it say? It's better to give than to receive. But I think sometimes the grace to receive is an important lesson to learn as well. So, you know, and it's part of it. But I want to come back to empathy because I think empathy is a very important concept that was my second word after kindness. It was empathy. And we talked a lot about how do we learn, how do we experience empathy. I want to go back to Donna, and Donna, I'm sorry to pick on you like this. I do enjoy it, but I'm sorry to do it.
Does it all the time.
That's all right, is to say we learn it by being there, by being present, by seeing other people struggle, and not knowing the answers, but wrestling for the answers and saying, you know, I want so badly to help, you know, Donna not have to wear white tennis shoes, but to be able to wear green tennis shoes or whatever, you know, type thing, and saying, you know, how can I help? How can I serve? But, you know, we want to wrestle through what's going on in the person we're present with. And develop and allowing, and I forget Paul and Karen, I forget who made the statement, allowing the things that break the heart of God to break our hearts, to being broken and vulnerable, and to allowing those things to change us, so that we're not always operating from a position of power. You know, one of the great things we can learn, I think, in this book is that persons who are different from us are our equals. We're not necessarily better, but we can learn from one another. And I think we also hopefully learn empathy as children and growing into that. But I think it's one of those things that the world needs so desperately now, Harriet, is empathy and kindness and love and a willingness to walk in another person's shoes and not to be so concerned about who wins, not to be concerned about who has the power or who has the authority. You know, one of the things I always try to keep in mind, because if you know me, and I'll say it and not apologize for it, I'm a liberal Democrat. I mean, that's politically where I am and have been all my life. But I have valuable experiences of valuable friends who are Republicans, who are independents all across the political spectrum. People's opinions matter. How we look at life matters. And we don't know where we would be if something different had happened to us. But I grew up in a home that's what my father's philosophy was, and if I ever changed, he would come back and get me out from the grave. But yeah, I mean, I think we just have to learn to say, everybody is someone from whom we can learn something. Everybody is an important person. All right, so who would like the last word before I bring us to a close?
Well, one thing that I learned, being a minister's wife, like when, we had our first child, that Elizabeth had more clothes than any baby in the whole world. Paul's church was gigantic. So, one of the things I had to come to terms with was being a good receiver.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
I really had to just kind of turn myself all around and say, okay, I am very thankful to have all these people and thankful that they've cared enough about us. And being a good receiver is really hard.
It really is. Trust me, I understand that. I was standing at the door one Sunday morning, and a gentleman came through, and he had on a metal watch band with his watch. And I said, "That is really a cool watch band." 2 weeks later, he showed up with 2 watch bands for me, and I'm like, "That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to give you a compliment." And he's like, "No, these are for you. And if you need me to, I'll put them on." I said, No. But it's hard sometimes to graciously receive. Yeah.
It is.
And yet, we are always receivers of the grace, the love, the kindness of God. And so we have to learn that.
Guess how he felt when you accepted that gift.
Oh, yeah.
Probably really didn't want. but
Oh, I
you-
wanted it. I really wanted it. I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say
He
that, but
probably
yeah.
felt better than you at the
Oh,
end
I
of
think
that.
he did. And he does this kind of thing all the time with all kinds of people. He's just a very giving, kind, good-hearted soul. Comes to the 9:15 service, and things. But yeah, I mean, I've got it on. I mean, I'm very
Oh, you do?
appreciative of it. Yeah.
Great, okay.
So I'll show it to you all after we finish taping. So
Just stand at the door and show it.
I'll stand at the door and show you. Maybe even I'll show you if I stand in the room with you. So, all right. So anybody else want anything? Anybody else want to say anything before we move towards closing? Karen, anything you want to say? Okay.
Not with my exhaustive stuff.
Yeah. I was not going to say anything about that. But you're a wise lady anyway.
She
So
doesn't read.
I know she works with me, so she stays
And
busy.
you can have somebody
I
read it to
read
you.
books, I just didn't read this one.
That's okay, that's okay.
Karen's honesty is greatly appreciated. We have had a busy month. I'm going on vacation the last couple weeks of August. So I'm trying to get everything done now that needs to be done, and things done that need to be done to start things up in the fall. Because when I come back, we're going to hit the ground running. It'll be time to do a lot of things. So I want to propose something to you guys. First of all, thank you again for coming. I really do appreciate it. I love to read. Don't get to read as often as I like to, but particularly novels and things. And I've gotten one of the things I've said now that I'm in my 60s is that I'm going to be reading more novels and fun things, and Paul, maybe less dense theology. And having a good time with it. There's probably some I'll still read Bonhoeffer, but I'm going to read some other good stuff. I really liked this book. I actually have a book that I like better. And we do have a book club here. And I do not want to diminish at all for what they're doing because, anybody go to that book club?
Are you talking about the women and we meet once a month?
Yes, ma'am. I'm talking about the women you meet, and the women and Stephen.
And Stephen,
Yes,
that's correct.
that's right. So,
Yes, and I'm the facilitator for the book in September.
and what is the book?
And the book is Secret of Secrets.
Okay.
It's a Dan Brown book. And I read it, and then I bought it, and I had it on Audible and listened to it, and then I listened to it again. And then I said, why did I choose this book? So, yes.
Well, then
I'm
he
the
has a nice last
facilitator.
name.
Pardon me?
He has a nice last name.
Yes.
But the book that what I would say is maybe if we could, one of the things I've been reading in different places is the the reality that, at least to some people, that reading is no longer as important or is done as frequently as
Gotta
it
be
used to
on
be.
that phone.
Yeah. So there's a wonderful book out there called The Correspondent.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh, I
gosh,
just
I just
finished that.
started it.
I'm,
I
so,
can't
I'm
believe it.
I just finished it this week.
It's a
I
great
just
book,
started
isn't
it.
it?
It's a great
It's a
book.
fabulous
I was
book.
thinking, oh gosh, will he say that book? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Awesome.
I did.
It is awesome, yes.
It's a great
That's
book.
amazing.
And it's Virginia Evans, right?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
Virginia Evans.
Yeah. And so I would propose that for the, and maybe we'll do this again like what, October or something before we get into Advent and things, and we'll do The Correspondent. And I don't want to diminish from the Dan Brown book, even though I don't know why you chose that one, but it's okay.
You know, I love Dan Brown
Okay.
and
What's-
Tom Hanks.
Right, Michael.
Tom, I'm so sorry.
But it came out and I'm like, okay. So I chose it back in April and
Okay.
then I said to Nancy Waters, I said, I don't know about this book.
Mhm.
And she says, you wanna withdraw? And I said, no, I don't wanna withdraw it. And she said, well, then do it in September. But I don't know,
Okay.
it was like an author I knew and I'm
All right.
like,
Okay.
and I had actually mentioned that, like last fall, we all, at the end of our meeting, we go, any suggestions, and we make a list. And I don't know, Nancy came back to me, if they choose your book, you have to facilitate. The last one I chose that we read was about blueberries.
Mm-hmm. And you've read some good ones that you read about the blue people in Appalachia
Yes.
and things like, there's a lot of
Yes.
good books.
And, of course, I took blueberries that day for everybody, a blueberry pie I had made.
Okay, all right. So at any rate, sometime in October, and maybe you can help facilitate it with me. We'd be glad to do that.
It was a wonderful book.
Huh?
I read it right after this one, and I
Yeah.
kept making comparisons.
Which one did you like better?
How did you find the name of that?
I think I like The Correspondent.
Yeah, I do. I really do. But both are good.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But The Correspondent, talking about writing letters
Yes.
and all that is,
Yes, yes.
even in this book, it talks about the fact that somebody said, I forget who it was, said, I've never received a handwritten letter.
That has
Yeah.
to be a young person.
Well, but it was in the book. It was in the
I
book.
have had a pen pal, and we started out as friends when we lived in Illinois. My
Okay.
husband was a teacher at Western Illinois University, and she was also a professor, and she got to know my family, 3 children.
Yeah.
We had no family there, so she would come over and babysit like once a month, and we'd go for a movie or,
Yeah.
have a night out or something. Anyway, so our lives went forward, and we ended up moving to Texas before we came here, after my husband passed away, but we kept in touch. She does not use social media, she talks on the phone, and she writes letters.
Mhm.
And so we have written to each other at least once a month, maybe once every 2 months, and sometimes she'll write me once a week. And I have all her letters, and it's just about, I went out to feed the birds today, and, I went to the bookstore, and I found 3 new books, and what are you reading? And, back and forth for 26 years now. We have
tremendous.
been,
It's tremendous.
correspondence with each other. And I was telling a friend of mine about this, and she said, you need to read The Correspondent.
Absolutely. It's a
And
great
so she
book.
recommended it, and I got the book and read
I
it.
think Kim Wagner may have recommended it, but did you like it, like, within the first couple of pages? I'm hoping.
Yeah, you're kind of
I'm
lost
hoping-
in the first couple of
Yeah,
pages,
okay,
yes, you are.
okay.
But you plow forward and it starts to make sense. In fact, when I finished it, I went back and read the first part of it,
There you go.
and it
Yeah.
made sense then,
You gotta do that with Dan
Yeah,
Brown.
you just gotta plow through,
Judy
yeah.
is too.
Who's
But
the
I've-
central character in that book?
Her name is Sybil Van Antwerp. And she lives in, believe it or not, Maryland. She lives in
That's right.
Annapolis,
Yeah.
Maryland. So,
We can even take a field trip.
yeah.
Are you, Pastor Dale, are you proposing correspondence for October or?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. The answer to that is yes.
Okay.
And I don't have the date or anything picked out like that. So I would encourage you to just start reading the book. And the other book that I'm reading and enjoying immensely is a book called Bird Watching as a Spiritual Discipline. And I'm enjoying that fabulously too. So we'll come back in October. Donna, it's not to diminish Dan Brown and those things, But maybe once you
It's a
keep
tough
going,
one.
it is. Yeah, I would have done that one. That's
Yeah,
okay.
it's a tough one.
You could have paid me enough to do that, my friend.
Well, I'll give you the book if you.
Nope, don't want it. That's okay.
It only
We're
has
okay.
165 chapters. You know.
And it would, my copy would end up over at the Nook.
I take it to restaurants to sit on, they don't have yellow pages anymore.
I'm not going there. So, folks, again, thank you for being here this evening. Please eat some refreshments. It's really important to do that because otherwise somebody's going to have to put it away and everything like that. But let's simply say to one another, God bless you. May the Lord be with you this evening, and we'll part. And to all the persons who are on this, I don't know if we had anybody or not, Austin, or not, but we made it available. Don't look it up. I don't want to know. Okay, just pretend we had thousands. Okay. So please eat something, and thank you. Have a wonderful evening. God bless. And can I turn this also? Because I keep seeing myself talking to myself, and it's not a pretty sight,
I
man.
can't hear real well.
What?
Glad to see you.
You too, yeah.
Do we have anybody?